Yeah.
So their seniors graduate.
They come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, learning. Just
the good old
It's
holidays.
great, like, we're doing season up.
Like, I know. It's 3 week semesters. Yeah.
Take a look. Take a look. It's great doing. I was meeting everybody. I think it's gonna be 3:30. There's a,
I think so. Just because they're swing right. I would telling me. That'd be shocking. And then
It's much for 2 and 3. Yeah, no way.
It's just.
Just don't.
We were wondering about that. You didn't.
Survey? No. I don't remember that.
Really? Somebody forced it, like.
It's just my.
We endorsed one. We have a winter, we don't think that, yeah, which one we know.
Oh.
Yeah.
But there's like 2 different kind of passes. Myself. Finally, we're, so every day. We got it.
This is what's making this fancy. Crazy.
Wow.
Oh, totally.
You can sit wherever you want.
I said, well, let's see. We figure out.
It's kind of like the.
Yeah.
Were you young?
Yeah.
I had one.
Yeah.
You're so funny. It's the Easter egg. But Alex, that we heard. Same, just, you know,
Mine.
I'm like, I just want to come over here. I'm also like, I want
Anyway, that was the only.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Still good comments on this.
You did. Did you? And it makes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Sands off just a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
No, so you're signing in and getting it. You're not.
20 minutes later, it was out, like, fine. Sitting in a row. I think that's how.
Did you sign in?
No.
Can I?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Ready for back.
Literally, she's getting.
But I also.
What is that? Well, it's not agriculture. That's rare.
Good rain. But then.
11 minutes.
No, the conversation is long.
Sometimes when you know you're like.
You know, champions, well, especially tonight. I love it.
Oh, they were bad. I've already been up once. Because I interviewed
Oh,
them.
my friend. Yeah.
Or,
I think everybody. Oh, yeah.
dual credit program as an assistant. So. Be nice to hire more. Well, my problem's not so much. I think you. It's like a continuation of what I did. So, like, in a the person's there, you know. At the same time. Okay, why don't I just have my Saturday morning?
I mean.
What? Yeah, my brother has that too. Same thing.
I know.
Well,
What is your?
You know what? That was when it came out on that.
Yeah, okay. And my other thing was, I mean, it makes sense to. Yeah, so we get always something to do that.
Make it now. You get to do whatever you want.
We'll go to honeymoon.
Okay, if there's some strange noise that comes out of me, don't worry about it.
I'll turn my ring off, so I'm not part of this.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's right here.
Well, he's.
I will.
I know. God, it shows the cost is not really bad.
Yeah. Sound like that. Take it back.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, they are. aren't they?
That looks like one of the trees.
Yeah, it's like a bush here. So it's great.
That's rational thought.
I don't know, my wife's looking at.
No, just.
Yeah, that again.
One more.
Well, here's what, so you know.
You
So how does it work like that also?
Yeah.
You just.
Yeah, see that?
So because it runs, I mean, like, you just read it now, so 5.
You gotta go. If you want to, you can put.
Well, I don't know.
No, I.
Are you gonna price it later? $200. That's a good question. It's probably decent. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, look at I got decks on them.
Her mom was in picture.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
It's gonna be late because she has a basketball practice.
No, you. Any found it? There.
And Martin is out. So. And Trish, you gotta leave before 7.
Band concert.
I know.
Let's schedule that stuff around.
Roll the agenda quickly, please.
Yes, we could.
I had no control of this.
And with that in mind, I will call this regularly scheduled meeting of the East Helena School Board of Trustees into session. And the first item is pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you one and all for attending this evening. Appreciate you taking the time. I do know that we've got some conflicts later on this evening, so there'll be a few of the people in attendance that will be having to take off for band concerts. So we'll try to expedite this as much as we can in order to accommodate things. Before the board this evening, we have this evening's agenda. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this evening's agenda? And it does sound like the student report will not be available.
We might just see if we can put her last order and see if she makes it, because she was gonna try and get here as quick as she could after practice.
Check, with that in mind, we'll go ahead and move on. So the next item is here in the public. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. On the back of this evening's agenda are guidelines for addressing the board on such items. And so therefore, if anybody in the audience would like to address the board, I invite them to do so.
Where do I,
You just, yeah, just, right.
Right there is
just
fine?
right, yeah.
okay. My name is Nancy Marks. I am from Townsend. I am from the newspaper in Townsend. And we wanted to come and meet you tonight. We are interested in covering the news in East Helena, especially the schools, because there are a lot of people who live in North Broadwater County whose children go to school here. There are many Broadwater County people who shop in East Helena, especially at Heritage Foods. And so we felt strongly about including you in our coverage. The coverage that we do mostly are government meetings like school board and the city council and the commissioners in Townsend. But we also do feature work on businesses, small businesses, both in East Helena and in Townsend. We have had our paper at Heritage Foods for 2.5 years. Hopefully some of you saw it. And so there are about 6 of us who work at it on a weekly basis. We put it out on Thursdays. We publish on Thursdays. It's printed at the Independent Record. So we kind of keep it in the circle here. We carry Montana Free Press stories and whatever else we think is interesting to our readers. We do have a special reporter, and she's here tonight. Her name is Linda Kent. She worked for many years for the Townsend Star as not only a reporter, but an editor and a publisher. So she's pretty well-versed in that sort of thing. She'll be covering your meetings, if that's okay. And here are last week's paper. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Appreciate you addressing the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other individuals that like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we will move on now to our reports. And the second item under the reports after student report is our administrative reports. And so our administrators go ahead and update us. And so Brandon, I will invite you to lead on that.
All right, good evening. In my board report, I touched on a few things, music programs being one. We kick that off tomorrow here with our second grade program. I also talked a little bit about our school teams, just refining our tier 2 processes, and then some walkthrough information. The one thing that I did want to update everybody on was some developments with House Bill 350, oh my gosh, yeah, 352, which is how we run our early literacy classroom. So last spring, our board, decided to vote on offering the 3 different options. We have the classroom-based option, which is our early literacy classroom. We have our jumpstart option, which is summer school. And then we have the home-based option, which is really facilitated by OPI. And so in order to run that, essentially all we did was hand out a flyer to families saying, you have this option to log your kid in and get them access to a program called Waterford. Across the state, they set aside $1.5 million for any district who was moving forward with House Bill 352, which really equates to about 1,500 students. And what they've seen across the state is it has very little interest. So now they're opening it up to just not 4-year-olds, but any student who was in our Jumpstart program. So us included and other districts can now offer this online resource to families for students who were going into kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade this year who qualified based on our Jumpstart information. So really, they kind of sold it as this is going to be a lot of interest. It's the first come, first serve. And now it's like there's really little interest. So just open it up a little bit more. Just a quick update on that. Any questions for the program?
Any questions for Brandon? Quick one for me.
Yeah.
This is, and I think I might have asked this before, maybe even to your predecessor, but I will ask it again. I noticed in your disciplinary report, you had a couple of out of school suspensions and so I was just gonna ask for that grade level, what, or even in school suspensions, what do those things look like?
Yeah, and it's progressive. So what we look at is students who show habitual incidents. So let's say like there's a physical contact or recess, and we might handle with a conference, a recess detention, just to spend that time away from recess, kind of natural consequence. You do that, and usually spend time in the office. And if it were to happen again, we might go to an in-school suspension. And then if it's continual, it might be an out-of-school suspension. So typically, it's not a one-time offense, it's progressive over time.
And the parents are involved during the entire process.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, they receive a formal letter, we talk to them, we knew to do the following, all that stuff.
Just whenever we're dealing with discipline with little kids, I have a tough time wrapping my head around.
Yeah,
You know what?
yeah, absolutely.
What's that? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions for Brandon? Seeing none, Gus?
So you folks have my board report. I don't have too much to elaborate on, other than I just want to give a special shout out to our East Helena PTO. They organize a well-run fundraiser and do their darndest to support anything that we put out to them. They went as far as this last year to increase the teacher grants from $150 to $250 per, not even teacher, but per staff member, which is really cool, provides a lot for our schools. And then lastly, we tried to, as a staff, tried to liven up the last couple of weeks before breaks, because breaks can be pretty hard for some kids. And so we're doing what is called a underground dress up days, where our staff participate in these dress up days and to see if our kids can pick up on what's going on within the staff. And today was Too Tired to Care Monday. So it was pretty fun to see some of the outfits that some of the staff members came to work in. So it was kind of fun, and kids were picking up on it, like, what's going on with my teacher today? Why are they dressed that way? Pretty fun. So yeah. Any questions for me?
Yes.
Where's your outfit?
I had a school board meeting tonight, so.
Let's hear what's going on over at EVMS.
So we just finished our mass testing a couple weeks ago. We were screaming to get done because the internet went out for 2 days. And so the kids would start and kick them out, and then it would start and kick them out. So they had to keep starting over. So we're gonna take that data and look at it and hope for the best, because I'm pretty sure they were very frustrated by the end. On December 20th, instead of staying after school and have students and staff stay, we're actually gonna end the day as a fun day and do our school dance at school. And students can't have any Fs, and then we'll use that time to catch them up on their work, catch up on their homework. And those who have more than 2 write-ups, they're gonna research and practice those behaviors that they have going for themselves. And then they'll be let loose, so we're super excited. And we've been doing pretty good. Last time I said that, we had 5 in a day, so.
Questions for Lisa? Michael?
Yeah, so I was looking at our numbers and I was pleasantly surprised to see the dramatic drop in referrals for the month of November. The big one that stood out to me is that 7th grade group who usually keeps us pretty busy. They significantly dropped their behaviors this month. I know last month I sat here and talked about how the discipline committee and I have kind of put our heads together and came up with some new things. So we're going to keep those going and just kind of see if this is a trend that continues. The other thing I was going to talk about too is something new in this report. I thought I was doing, but apparently I wasn't, is the location of the behavior. So that's new on your report this month. That'll continue as well. And on that, it was really no surprise with the majority of the write-ups coming from the classroom. And the majority of those are handled in the classroom. There's a select few that come to me, but for the most part, they're handled in the classroom. So, question?
Questions, Michael? Okay, Paul?
Yeah, you guys got the report, hopefully. Yeah, and there's nothing I can add to what I've got on there, I think. Lots of stuff coming up over the break here. So for instance, next month, yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of a deeper dive into 227, and we'll sort of talk to you a little bit more about that as we get to the end of the semester and what all of it means. But outside of that, it's all good.
Any questions for our high school principal? Christian?
So you have my board report, but I think the biggest thing is that first part when we talked about PBIS program and our students that came, gave up a lunch, met with me to talk about different assemblies, Vigilante Star prizes, and just different activities. Their biggest focus was making sure that we have enough events for our kids at the school, because apparently we don't do enough outside of our school hours for students, but just making sure that we have our doors open as often as possible to our kids, because we want to have a safe place for them to be and to make good choices. The amount of times that we receive reports of misbehavior or handle with cares from our SROs on weekends when we don't have games are significantly higher than if we have a game for a student to attend. So just thinking outside the box on that, it was a great group to listen to. They had some really great ideas. I think the other positive thing is closer to the end of my report, I did have all the discipline referrals in there for the month, but I looked at the total number of referrals for our school year versus the amount of Vigilante Stars that have been handed out. And so right now we're sitting at, I believe 97 total office referrals for the year, but we've handed out 115 Vigilante Stars. So way more positive interactions. All of our 227 students, as they gain quarter credit to half credit to full credits, get different versions of the Vigilante Star, whether it's a small one, a full Vigilante Star, or some different things for getting that credit in the 227. So lots of great things going on, but really, really excited to see the positivity coming out of Vigilante Star program versus our office referrals.
Great. Any questions, Christian?
Do you think the students are doing better with the no cell phone? Is that like improving their ability to learn?
They really don't want us to take them, so yeah. I think I had one kid that was walking down the hallway and saw me coming and like quickly put his phone in his pocket, and I was like, oh god, that was close. So I just don't think they want us to take it from them, so they're being pretty good about their cell phones. We also have quite a few teachers who are a little bit more lenient in their classroom, which I think helps. So yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah. Sean?
Ready? All right, so let me just say that a couple of weeks ago, a couple of things are on topic were realignment of football. Got that. On the other side, I have a baseball alignment for conferences for this year coming up. Just you guys take a look at that. See how that looks. Couple things about that, with the MHSA, we also had 3 kids appeal because they were ruled ineligible for the start of the winter sports season. And all 3 of them got approved to participate, so that was good. We also realigned tennis again. So baseball, we're on our 3rd season, and we'll be on our 3rd conference. Because they just keep adding more teams. And next year, it's looking like the AA might break off because they're gonna have another 4 to 5 teams. So there's gonna be probably 40 teams playing baseball next year. Football, this is good for us. I think it's good for everybody in the state personally because one, it cuts down our travel. We won't have to go out to Sydney and Glendive anymore, which it's just not good to come home at 5 AM after a night in Glendive. So that's gonna help. And we have just 5 league games for the conference playoffs and the top 3 from each divisional go. Couple other things, the cool things are the new scoreboard for the middle school shipped today. So they're getting a brand new scoreboard thanks to the PTO Booster Club and a couple other sponsors. So that should be installed hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Our wrestling mat light, hopefully will get installed over Christmas, and I think it's been shipped. I'm not sure, I know it's been ordered, I'm pretty sure. So we're gonna have that up for our next, wrestling match. We start pretty hard this, wrestling was out this past week, this Feast of Bait, and we had some JV freshman games for basketball. But we go, everything starts, for real this weekend. We have basketball at home, wrestling goes on the road tomorrow, and then they're on the road again this weekend. And then next week they'll be home on the 19th, they'll go home on next Wednesday and Friday, Saturday in the Class A hip hop East versus West. So a lot of good stuff happening. Questions?
Any questions for Sean?
I'm surprised to see all the co-ops in the baseball.
Yeah,
Here's my perception, the smaller schools are really reaching to try to put a program together. And we still don't have even half the AA's that are participating there. How much longer do you think that's gonna stay as an all-class format?
I think next year if we get, Bozeman's talking about coming in and so is Kalispell. I think if those 4 come in, they'll break off because they'll have 12 teams.
Break off the AA from the rest of us.
I think the AA haven't hit yet because Legion's so big, so.
No, because if you have the high school baseball, Legion you can't play both. You can practice both, but you can't play both. The interesting thing is, the last few years, Legion has signed off an MOU saying that they would not, let them practice. I think there's some, now
They would adjust their season.
Yeah,
if
they
you're
haven't signed that
local
agreement this
schools,
year,
Put it into place.
but.
So I don't know how they're doing that because some towns have it, some don't.
Yeah, they're having a hard time scheduling games, so I don't know why they wouldn't just wait till the end of our season.
And isn't one of the biggest Legion programs in the Bitterroot anyway, and like Hamilton, Darby, they're on here, Florence, Carlton,
Yeah, I mean,
Corvallis.
so I don't know what they're gonna do with, you can talk to one, double A's that won't be, it'll be Helena and. I think Helena, maybe Kalispell, it's very probably when we come in next year, both.
It's already in this here.
The Missoulas are coming this year and Billings have added this year, so they're at 8 right now, so I thought they'd break off this year and get their own, I think they want to break off because they haven't won a state title. The lower levels are beating them in the state tournament, so.
Interesting.
And Sean, this is signed, sealed.
Signed,
delivered?
sealed, and delivered. Some people are, well,
I could imagine Laurel being a little bit upset being shipped off in Central.
before I did this, I talked to them, I said, how do you feel about that? And they're like, well, we have to go to Brandon, you go to Sydney, it's about an hour's difference. So I mean, for them, they can still play all the billing schools for their non-league.
Conference.
So I mean, it's not like they're playing something new, Browning's the only new school.
Yeah.
Really, it's probably gonna be a new school. So I mean, it's credit to them and Browning to do that, to jump into this and say, we're going to try it.
Yeah, it's not ideal any stretch, it's gonna be something.
It's not
I'm
going
just
to be
curious.
perfect, but it's better, I think, overall.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Thanks,
So-
Sean. I know you worked really hard on that, so.
So. Anything else? No?
I believe so.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Derek,
Evening. Big thing this month, the website, the new website's finally up and running. There's still some tweaks that I'm making every day, as far as training goes for those who are using that. Just meeting up with them and building guides for them as we go. Now that that's done, my big focus is identifying all the shortfalls in, any shortfalls in devices, so Chromebooks, Samsung devices, iPads, and then building out a long-term plan so that we can plan for the budget on that, instead of it hitting us all at once. About halfway done with that so far. And then starting today, the CRDC reporting started, and I have never done that, but I'm working with Brandon Hanson right now, and then I have some classes coming up as well for that, so get a head start.
thanks, Derek.
Any questions for Eric?
Appreciate you planning ahead, though, that's awesome.
Out of curiosity, and I should probably know more about this than what I do, but E-rate. That's currently in the midst of court battle and going to be heard or is being heard on it, if I understand correctly. And do we know what the implications are potentially for our district if that does not show up to be favorable?
Would you guess around $20,000 to $30,000 a year?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this court case. Is it,
I'm not
would it completely remove?
I think that they're questioning the constitutionality of E-rate and how it's funded.
I'd have to admit, I'm a little ignorant about that part of it, but we do benefit pretty significantly from E-rate. Partly in our network hardware acquisition, so they help support that. I think partly in our just connectivity for our internet connectivity. And so that's a ballpark, I think somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000 a year might be a good estimate of what we.
It's
benefit,
significant.
right? So it would be a hit. It's awesome. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to what exactly the implications are or, what the basis is of that.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware there was a legal battle.
and I haven't seen any articles come across my desk, so it's interesting, so I'll see what I can find out. Okay.
Any other questions for? Okay. Saying none, we'll move on now to trustee and committee reports of the board. And
Meetings, committee meetings.
the insurance meeting, did it come post?
Oh, that was after the, yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't think of that as a board committee, but the insurance committee members are on it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know if you want to elaborate at all, but we had what?
Oh, there's a lot of us who are there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll talk about it a little bit.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So we had guest speakers come in, Lori Farron and Stephen, Jill, help me out, Stephen's last name.
It is Doyle.
Noise.
Yeah, Noise.
Noise,
Yeah.
maybe, and talk to us just about, plan structure. And, they talked a little bit about how our insurance offerings and plans compare to, nearby school districts, shared some information with us about that. They shared a significant amount of information about, new aspects in the law related to high deductible plans and, the health savings accounts that can go along with them. And, went into a fair amount of detail as to how that health savings account could become an important savings vehicle for, staff members if they utilize it like that, because it's a tax-free or pre-tax contribution, and you put money into it and you can use it for any health-related expenses. So those are some different concepts for us. We did implement a high deductible plan as part of our offerings this year, and did have a few staff members take us up on that option. And we're just kind of learning about it, because up until this year, it was something that was pretty foreign to us. We didn't know much about it. I can't really think of anything else. It was a full 90-minute presentation and a lot of discussion. I think there's a lot of back and forth and conversation, questions and answers. So I thought it was pretty informational. I don't know.
I know Sarah and Kate were in attendance and Marcia, you were as well. You know, from my perspective, it was very interesting, eye-opening and things.
Yeah.
You probably know more about it than those individuals that these person.
Oh, I don't know about that. Very, very knowledgeable. I think I mean, it's good to have someone like her, involved in the health benefits for the school because she's very knowledgeable and has a lot of access to a lot of different, programs and options that can potentially benefit the school district. So, I think it's an interesting, it was a good presentation. I think it's gonna be a good discussion going forward. Really good.
In perspective.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I would say the same thing. It was good discussion to start with, and then the next plan to be being like the whole state plan. It was good to have this one first before that.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
And that next meeting is January 6th. We meeting at 5:30? That what we've been.
Whatever you say.
Okay, 5:30 in this room. And that'll be John Doran coming to talk to us about the trust.
So any questions about the insurance subcommittee meeting that they had? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to strategic planning and scanning for future needs for the district.
And I don't really have any updates on it this week. Maybe that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I can't. I don't believe that. Yeah, do any of the board members have any items that they would like to bring up for discussion and consideration?
It's worth mentioning that you and I have discussed possibly scheduling an infrastructure committee meeting for mid to late January, just to review the facility plan and review, but we haven't set a date for that yet.
Yep, just strictly in planning stages at this point, but we will be doing that, just keep that moving forward. Okay, so we'll visit this again in our next meeting. Item number 5 in the reports is legislative status report. Want to start off, Dan?
Yeah, so this, so everybody knows this will be a standing report through the legislative session. And I think we kind of are intending it to be an opportunity for folks to ask questions or comment about things they may have heard or seen in the news about what might be going on in the session. Scott and I will try to be able to provide updated information about bills related to education. The only big thing that I'm aware of was the topic of last week's Think Tank Thursday and the one I believe before Thanksgiving as well. And that is the school funding bill that that School Board Association is working on in partnership with with a few folks on the Education Interim Committee to get a draft ready for introduction at the session that would enhance school funding in a variety of ways. Probably the biggest one being, feel free to jump in here, an increase in the quality educator payment that is paid to each school for each qualifying employee that meets the qualifications, which typically means you're a certified teacher. And that would be a significant boost to most school districts if they qualify for the additional payment. And there are benchmarks that the district has to hit to qualify for that payment. And that is a minimum starting salary of 11 times the quality educator payment, which is a number right around $41,000, I believe. And your minimum starting salary for this year has to be at least 62% or more of your average teacher pay from last year. If that doesn't make your head spin a little bit. But the intent is to bring up entry-level salaries to make the teaching profession more attractive to young people in the state of Montana. So that we hold on to our kids who are going to school to become teachers and also make it attractive as a career that you might want to move here for, or to attract candidates from out of state. And that is, so that'll provide basically a carrot and a stick for some districts to increase their starting pay. Jill and I checked again today and last week, and we, based on the way the bill drafted looking right now, we will qualify right out the gate because our starting pay is above the minimum level and we're above the percentage threshold when compared to average pay. So, so we're in good shape there. What are some other?
Well, on that one, on the teach payment, one thing to keep in mind is it's 62% the first year.
Right.
And then it goes up 2% every additional year until it reaches 70%. And 70% is the threshold we're utilizing in order to measure it. So a school district will continue to receive that as long as they meet those requirements. As soon as they no longer meet the requirements, they have a year in order to make that up. And if they don't, then they would lose that incentive pay. So it's not a requirement that a district has to do that, but it is an incentive by the legislature to try to enhance, especially the starting salaries of our teachers. One thing that I think is really a great possibility is there's another item or component that will provide additional, I wouldn't call it additional A and B, it's an additional percentage of our A and B associated with how many kids within our school districts graduate with some post-secondary credits. So for instance, if we've got a graduate or a student that graduates and they've got greater than 15 post-secondary credits, either through A and B or dual credit or any number of things, then the high school will get about an additional $800 for as a reward or incentive for that student doing so. And then also so that they understand that it wasn't just a single, that it was just the high school that did it. They're also offering approximately $600 to the elementary school that also had that student into it. So there's some significant funding and incentives to that. And then those incentives go up. That's goal level 1. Goal level 2 is if you have greater than 30 post-secondary credits, you get 20% of A and B. So that would relate to about $1,600 and $1,200. And if by some chance, and Dan and I have been emailing each other back and forth, but by some chance, if we were able to develop some type of program where we could provide our kids with an associate's degree as they walk out the door, whether it be through like a nursing or some other program, then we can get up to 30% of the A and B. So I mean, there's some significant dollars that are associated with that. Dan and I are kind of questioning whether or not that's even a possibility as far as the associate degree level goes, but there's other items, and it's not just college. It is also CTE, and the Department of Labor and Industry is going to be developing some requirements for those classes so that they would have in industry recognized credentials as a result of attending these classes. So there's some really cool opportunities for that. If you meet the threshold, they're going to allow school districts to expand their budget in order to take care of additional housing. Because there's some school districts that have had quite a bit of issues as far as just having staff being able to afford housing. And so it would allow the school district to send out a levy or even possibly do a permissive levy in order to help staff gain for assistance in getting some housing. The fourth part of it is that they're going to fully fund advanced opportunities. This is an item that our school district has been utilizing or trying to utilize a lot for things like paying for AP exams and doing those types of things. So there'll be some good items associated or good monies associated with that. They'll also be increasing the major maintenance aid that'll be provided to schools in order to help them to fix roofs, boilers, et cetera. Might come a little late for us, but I'm sure we can find some other needs.
Oh, we've got needs.
And then, there is a couple of other things, some slight tweaks as far as, state funding goes in smaller areas, but it seems like there's a very aggressive drive by this legislature to try to have some influence, more of an incentive as opposed to a stick where they've said, you're either gonna do this or else. This is more of, if you do this, we're gonna provide you with some additional funds to be able to move forward. And so I had a meeting last Wednesday with some of the senior leadership. And it seemed like there was some very strong support for this. Whether or not it's gonna look anywhere close to this is, you know, difficult to guess, because once they get into the legislative session, the whole thing could be drastically different. But there's a lot of support from senior leadership to be able to do that, and the governor's office stated that if there's something that looks close to this coming through, that he would be very likely to sign it. So those are all good things.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
To have that kind of momentum and people coming together, bringing this much thought into it before the start of the session, I think it bodes well for it. Even if, like, say, it passes in a different form. And I believe the intent behind it is thinking long-term for how to improve and support education in the state, which is encouraging to see.
So any questions on that? And for anybody that is interested, I do have a basic concept paper of what I just talked about as far as the STARS Act goes. And I also have a listing of all of the legislative committees. And so if you're interested to know on who's on those committees, you're more than, I got about a dozen copies of it, more than welcome to, and you can access it on the website as well. So any questions, comments on that? I was just gonna throw out a quick deal on COSBA. We have sent off a national request for our executive director, and that went out last week. We're very excited about what we've got moving as far as the application or potential applicants maybe. And I think that we've got a good chance of getting another really good executive director for the association, somebody that is going to be able to continue the successes that we've seen so far. Okay. So if there's no questions on that, before we get to the students report, let's do notifications of retirements, resignations. We didn't have any. We didn't have any. So saying that, then since our student representative showed up, we will allow Brooke to give us a quick student report. Go right ahead.
Okay, so for this last month, the major thing that's going on in the East Holland, I guess, is that winter sports have really started. So wrestling went to Folsom last Friday. Some kids brought home some victories. They head to Three Forks tomorrow for a match, and then speech and debate went to Billings Central on Saturday. They ended up being Laurel, which I guess was really exciting for them. And then I talked to a couple of people individually, and it sounded like they were all really excited for the season, and that they've been really successful in their events and participating in, and they're super excited about the season. As for upcoming events this week and this month to come, there's girls and boys basketball starting this week. They play Hardin on Friday, and then they go to Haller on Saturday, which are both a doubleheader. Both boys and girls Freshmore JV teams already started their season with Glenview Central last Friday. Swimming has a meet at View on Friday the 13th, and Key Club has been collecting old blankets for the Humane Societies for Pets. And then, the first semester is already coming to an end pretty quickly as it ends January 17th.
Great, a lot. Any questions for our student representative? Thanks, bro, appreciate it. Okay. We'll now move on to our consent action items. Before the board this evening, we have the regular minutes of our November 11th meeting, approval of our current and former warrants, personnel actions, and our surrounding school district enrollment approvals. Typically, there is no debate on consent action items. However, if a member of the board wishes to debate or discuss an item separately, they can ask to have it removed and debated on its own. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent action items as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent action items as presented.
Yeah, motion, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second for Tyrell. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. On to unfinished business, and the first item on our unfinished business is a report on our EPA electric bus rebates.
So yeah, this is the saga continues, I guess, is the best information I can give you. I had a sales call with our salesman with Lion Electric on, I want to say Tuesday or Wednesday of last week. It was probably Wednesday. They had sent me price quotes for 2 different styles of buses from them that we could consider for our 3 rebates that we have. And when I got on the call with what I expected to be my 2 salesmen, there were only 1 salesman there. And he informed me that Lion Electric had laid off 400 members of their staff on Monday of last week, closed down their brand new 900,000 square foot factory in Illinois, and moved all their operations back to Quebec. So they're in a major retrenchment phase right now. And at that, he's basically, I'll just try to keep it pretty short. He told me, he said, at this point, there's no way I would let you place an order with our company, because he goes, I don't even know if we're gonna have a company in a couple of weeks. And he was pretty down, as you can imagine. I mean, these are all people that, some of them I've worked with off and on for like a couple of years. He expects there to be a pretty significant announcement on Monday of next week. And he believes that that announcement is either going to be that the company is filing bankruptcy and reorganization, or that they are being bought by another company. So it's hard to say which way that's going to go. I think I told you guys last month, maybe I didn't. Our extension on our rebates is until the day after our January board meeting. So if I don't have something on paper for you by January, which is not looking good right now, they're going to expire. And if we want to reapply, we can reapply if there's another round of applications. But his words to me on the Zoom call last week was something that I think I remember saying with this board back in August or September, and that is, kind of got the feeling that this is the company that got too big too fast and got out ahead of themselves. And one of the things he said is, they anticipated when the Infrastructure Act passed with the billions of dollars towards rebates for electric vehicles, that they wanted to be prepared to meet that demand. So they expanded their business. And he said to date, for all the electric buses that they delivered under EPA rebates, his words to me, and I don't have any verification of this, we have not received a penny from the federal government for any of those buses that we've delivered so far. So he said, basically, we've got a cash flow problem right now. And I don't know what the holdup is on that, but and I'm not really interested in finding out, to be honest with you. But that's the status of the situation right now. So I'll keep updating you, and if there is a strange turn of events, I might bring you interesting recommendation in January, or we might just not have to talk about it anymore.
Dan, one final question.
Yeah. So the part is here. So now we're waiting for a technician to come install it. Okay. And in their public statement in the news articles that I read, which I was searching on Google while I was on the Zoom call with this guy. Because bus drivers, actually Nick, I think, had texted me on Tuesday and said, our guys are just hearing that Lion is in trouble. So somebody had seen the news. I hadn't even heard about it, other than from Nick, and hadn't, seen the articles. So then I was looking at the articles. Supposedly they kept on most of their maintenance staff to keep what they have on the road going. So we'll see how long that lasts. You know, that's the same thought I have, is if our repair guy gets paid off, then what do we do? So we have to try and figure it out ourselves, right? So anyway, that's where it's at. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments for Dan? I guess the one thing I can say is that yes, I'm glad that we've heard about it now before.
We had 3 buses on order.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe the one angle that I'm gonna try, you guys, is get a hold of the EPA and say, hey, especially if they file bankruptcy, to ask about reassignment of our rebates and maybe possibly even qualify for another extension since our vendor evaporated. There's a possibility of that, so I wouldn't say it's completely dead, but it's a fight I'm not excited to. I just don't know how fruitful it's gonna be for the amount of time it's put in. Sure.
This where it's just waiting for the next.
Right.
There's no other questions, comments, then we'll move on to item number 2, which is our collection of superintendent's evaluations. So far, I've received 4 out of 7. I will be the first one to admit that I am one of the 3 that has not finished them. So first time in my tenure that I have not had it done. So, but things going on in the weekend.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yes. And we need the Bobcats to lose.
It's not just like give me your evaluation, that keep it up, Dan, and your evaluation is gonna reflect that.
Go Bobcats.
But I believe I'm still waiting for one from Kristen and for Mark, is that correct?
Oh, did I turn one in?
Oh, and Mark.
Ah.
I did.
Like,
No, that's right.
I did do it.
So the
Yeah,
numbers-
I've done it.
That the numbers reverse, so there's 4 of us.
Unlike you, that it's the first time that this has happened, this is not the first time for me, so I'll go ahead and admit that, but I'll get that to you as quickly as I can.
Yeah, if we can get that as quickly as we can, I'd really appreciate that. It allows me the opportunity to collate them, get them together, and then get them over to Tyrell so that he can check them, verify them before we get them checked away. Appreciate it. No. You want to fill one out, Brooke? It won't be. You have one filled out. I like her.
That's my office.
Exactly, that might be something beneficial.
Got me nervous.
Well, if you've got that and you want to get that over to me, then I email or however. It won't be part of the final one that goes into this file, but it definitely will be Sharon's. Any questions, comments on superintendent's evaluations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business, and the first item under new business is our final audit report review.
So. We don't have it.
We don't
We don't
have
have
it.
So we should probably table that.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Wait. What, Becker to wait, what?
Oh, I said sweet.
Oh, sweet.
I wouldn't check, sorry.
Yeah,
that was my outside
Tom
voice.
actually emailed Jill this morning and said he thought they would have it for us by the end of the day. Even if it had come in at 3 or 4 this afternoon, that's not enough time for people to actually look at the document, because it's usually pretty lengthy, so. I think we're best off tabling that until January.
Yeah, and it actually was an information I listed on here, so we would have had to.
Okay,
Make any decision, but-
we'll just leave it on there.
Yeah, and just revisit this in our January meeting. Okay. Next item number 2 is consideration of resolution number 239 for the disposition of some obsolete equipment.
Yeah, so it's in your packet, it's a 22-inch Powermatic planer. This is a tool used in the wood shop. At East Helena High School, it's been upgraded and replaced through the Perkins grant. with a new piece of equipment, so this one is no longer needed. It's not that old because it was brand new when the school was built, but our tools in the shop get used all day, every day by students, and so this one does have some time on it, but it's still a fairly new piece of equipment. So we do need to dispose of it. I do know of at least 2 individuals who are interested in bids on it, so I don't think I'll have any trouble selling it. We just got a new one. Which Tim just bought the one that was at. If he wants to sell money, should go talk to Brad.
I was gonna say, this is superintendent.
Oh, I'm good.
Minimum bid or?
No, that's just open, it's sealed bids, so that's kind of the game, is you have no idea what other people might be thinking. So you might get a really good deal.
Like. They're worth anywhere from 8 to 10,000.
That'll be great. You have a big one.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, that's right.
So we do need a.
Sorry,
So I do need a motion to approve resolution 239 in order to release it for consideration of bid by the public.
So move.
Okay, you have a motion.
Second.
And a second from Martha. Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? No, we're not gonna go into detail.
Fine.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Okay, we will hopefully get some decent bids into that. One thing to keep in mind with that is that if the value of the bid comes in quite a bit less than what we think the actual value is on it, it is up to the board's prerogative to deny the bid or accept that. So that's gonna be an opportunity as well. We typically not had to do that, but in a case like this, where there's something of quite a bit of value, it might be something that we need to do a little bit of investigation on. So you might want to have that ready for us in January.
Yeah, it feels like this.
Okay, next item under the agenda is we have got a listing of some new school activity accounts that we need to open. Here's that we've got girls wrestling, the East Helena High School F1 Club. Which I have a question on that, the East Strength Club and the East Helena High School Dungeons and Dragons Club.
Yes, so girls wrestling's been around for a while, but they've shared their money in the account for the wrestling group overall. It's gaining in popularity, it's gaining participation. They're kind of becoming their own team and are doing their own fundraising, so it makes sense for them to have a separate account. F1 and Dungeons and Dragons, these are 2 brand new clubs. I don't know that there's gonna be a lot of money moving through those, but they do want to do some fundraising. Tristan just asked me, F1 is that, those are those race cars that the European guys drive.
Formula One.
Formula One, yeah. Thank you. And then what's that? No, they're not driving in Formula One cars. I think they're actually, researching the stats and talking about the drivers and kind of like a fan club sort of thing.
They've been watching.
And then the strength club, that's Coach Murray is starting a weightlifting group, and they're gonna have a membership fee, like $10 or something. They're gonna charge to participate in it. I'm not 100% sure what they're doing with that, but I do think they're just trying to raise a little bit of money with that too.
So, at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to Approved the opening of the following student activity accounts: the girls wrestling, the East Helena High School Formula One Club, the East Helena Straight Club, and the East Helena High School Dungeons and Dragons Club.
Make a motion.
Have a motion from Tristan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Tyrell. Any questions, comments from the board? Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I just wonder, you know, we're probably getting about close to 100 of these things. And is Jill tasked with balancing these?
No, actually,
Reconciling-
so Jen Cordell actually manages the student activity accounts. It is becoming a pretty big job.
Yeah.
We, in fact, Jill and I were talking about it, last week when these requests came through. You know, Mark, when we were a K-8 district, we had a running balance in our student activity account of somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000.
Yeah.
Now it's typically right around $250,000. And so that's the difference at the high school, the impact that the high school has had. And we're still a little bit new at it, so trying to determine, you know, some of these groups, if they don't have a lot of money going in or out, it's really not a huge burden because we just track their balance, because all the money is in one account, and then we track it internally as far as how much each group has as part of that balance. But Jen has been doing that, but yeah, their workload has increased significantly in the last 5 years.
I'm just, you know, I mean, at some point, it's gonna take a full-time person to do this, and we're gonna have to pay for that, and it's, these are curricular.
Yeah.
Outside of school, I mean, they're kind of
Yeah, we're
chartered by the school, but they're not part of the school.
great. And they, you know, and the fundraising dollars are significant, and there is a significant responsibility that we have to make sure that the money follows the kids to the right group and gets spent appropriately. So this is it's an area that we're having ongoing discussions about what the best way to manage it is, and just trying to learn from some other similar sized districts about how they take care of it. So that was part of the conversation I was having with Jill. We gotta find out from Masville what other school districts do with all this. I mean, it's a good problem to have. We have kids who want to be involved in things and participate. It's just making sure that we're being responsible for this.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Brooke, do you have any individual or personal insights on any of these clubs? You're not involved with the F1 club?
No, I'm not.
Did you bring it up for everyone?
No. I do think that the East Helena Strength Club is like part of the football team too. Like, I think they're fundraising for the football team too. I'm not entirely sure, but I could be this weekend. I could be wrong.
So probably have to be careful and make sure that the funds are accounted for and not by.
Not washed, right?
If you see any trouble.
Something with the rate, I don't know, something like that. Something in that realm. Something.
I'll check. I'll talk to Coach Green.
Any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. And onward, we've got consideration of our Montana Advanced Opportunity Annual Report.
Okay, this I sent out late after the packet last week, and I didn't know, it didn't make it into the supporting docs, so Brandon was gracious enough to run us some hard copies in case anybody needs to look at it. And this is a required annual report related to advanced opportunities, and it's changed. This is probably the third one I've had to file, and it's been a little bit different every year. It's pretty simple, but it's also kind of confusing. And so I just want to explain to you a couple things that are in it, and probably one of the most significant ones is on that front page where it says amount of funding received. Our funding for this year is over $100,000 for advanced opportunity. And this was a grant, if you remember, back before Ron retired, that he applied for. And we were one of the first school districts in the state to participate and be part of advanced opportunity, and we didn't even necessarily understand what the intent was, but what we do with the money is we pay for a significant amount of dual credit and dual enrollment credits for our high school students mostly through Helena College, but also through some, like we had some kids do some dual credit through BYU last year. I remember signing off on those. And then we also have used it to buy tools and equipment for kids who are taking part in CTE programs. We have a student doing the machining program at Helena College, and we helped him with his tools and equipment that he needed. We can also use the money for a variety of expenses related to internships and apprenticeships. So if a welding student gets invited to do an internship at a welding shop in town and he needs a new welding helmet to do that internship, we can buy that helmet for him with this money. So this is a really cool program, and it's saved literally thousands of dollars for families in the district, because we're paying for all of that dual credit that kids are earning before they leave us, which saves families a lot of money when their child finally graduates and goes to college or whatever they're going to do after graduation. We also pay for the pre-ACT for our, I believe it's for our 10th graders, which is basically a practice test before they take the ACT. I mean, it's a real test, but it gives them some insight as to how they're probably going to perform on the ACT and how they can improve their potential score when they take the ACT. And we pay for all the advanced placement test fees for students who take AP classes. So all of that is on the very back page of your report. And the dollars that are associated with it, and the estimated number of credits that students have earned so far, and that doesn't count the students who are enrolled this fall, is all documented on there. The weird part about it is you report how much money you received, and that $102,000 came to us in October. And then you report how much you've expended, and they don't match up, but you're actually reporting different parts of the calendar year, because they want your fiscal year. Well, it says fiscal year 2024 expenditures, but when I contacted OPI and asked them about it, they said, well, actually, we want your calendar year from January 1 to December 31. So there's no way that those reports are going to match up or balance. So I'm not quite sure why they asked us for that, but we reported it. The important part here is just for the board to know that this is a significant investment in our kids coming from the state. It was kind of an experiment in the legislature when we applied for it and got it. And now, like Scott said tonight, part of the new funding proposal is to embed it in the funding formula for all schools in the state of Montana. And it should turn out over the long haul to be a real windfall for students and parents. That I can probably just take questions if you have a question.
Any questions for Dan?
Looks like we can roll over the balance from previous years.
Yes, thank you. And one of the things we can do with the accrued dollars in there is up to 25% of it we can use to enhance career and technical education for students. And so we're going to use some of that money. That's how we're planning for our ag teacher this spring. So because that qualifies the CTE, and we can put some of that accrued advanced opportunity money towards that to help offset that expense this year.
I'll just throw it off and on over the course of the last couple of years. East Helena schools have been actually shown as an example of a proactive district in utilizing us. So the chairman of the House Appropriations actually has mentioned this a couple different times on us. So it shows that people are seeing what we're doing. There's a few of the legislators that don't think we're doing that. The school districts are doing enough. So any type of ideas or thoughts that people have that you think might be useful in order to expend these types of dollars, I can be
You know, honestly, one of the things that was discussed in the legislature too, when it first came about was. Especially when it comes to workplace, learning experiences for kids. That there was a concern that. Employers weren't willing to take on high school students in a workplace learning situation because of work comp expenses. And so that's one of the things that we can actually spend the money on, and if an employer says, yeah, I'll take one of your kids as an intern here, but it's gonna cost this much on my work comp insurance, so you guys have to pay for it, or we can use advanced opportunity for that. We've never had a business ask us for that. So that speaks pretty highly of our local businesses, that they're willing to absorb that cost. But it is something that we have it available for. If we wanted to use it for that.
How is the information going out to the students? How do they act?
They just don't get a bill.
I mean,
So,
in
like-
general, like if they're like, I'm considering doing this program.
Yeah, so we have had students come in and ask for that. Most of the time when they sign up for AP, like if you're signing up for the AP course, you know there's gonna be a fee in May when you take the AP test. Our kids have never had to pay that because we just write one check to the college board for those expenses. And same thing with, and this is with dual credit, the university system already has the 1, 2, 3 program, which gets you your first 2 classes for free through their program. So we don't even get billed until a student's taken their 3rd college course. And then again, Helena College sends an invoice straight to the business office and we just pay the bill. And so we've been super fortunate, and you can see the dollars, we're actually starting to knock on the door of spending what we're taking in. In our first couple of years, it wasn't quite as close as it is right now. And someday if we reach the point where we've got more demand than we actually have coming in, then we're probably gonna have to make some decisions how we're gonna prioritize those funds. But for right now, we haven't had to worry about it. And it's one of the coolest programs that I've seen. Really in my career for helping kids get a head start. And when a student graduates with, say, 15 college credits, that's a semester of school.
Yeah.
So if they can graduate with 15 credits or even 30 credits, then you could actually theoretically knock off a year of college. That's a significant savings to the student, to the family, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, as part of this report, it is a requirement that the board approves the report prior to submission. So therefore, I would entertain a motion to approve the Montana Advanced Opportunities Grant annual report for the public schools. I have a motion from Kristen. Do I have a second? Second for Mark. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Saying aye, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And moving on, we will have a discussion on our charter school status and the Office of Public Instruction's letter of advisement.
This letter is in your supporting docs, but I did bring separate copies for you too to look at. This came last month, and I did contact Olivia Jenkins at the Office of Public Instruction just to verify that what I was reading in here was accurate. And I did send an email to Scott and Lance Melton and the Board of Public Ed complaining about the hoop that we're supposed to jump through that is tripping us up right now. And that is that, long story short, the way the Board of Public, or the way the OPI counts enrollment under Montana code is that our 6th graders are counted as part of the elementary unit for base aid funding. So the bonus of having charter schools is we get an additional base aid payment for the high school and additional base aid payment for when we submitted our application, we did not project the minimum number of students in the first year for the middle school that would be required to secure that base aid payment, but they authorized it anyway. So I was concerned about that. I was concerned because I wasn't 100% sure that I was understanding how this count was fit together, but I was right. And that is that the sixth graders are not in, they're their own group, and we don't have an elementary group, so we don't get an elementary base aid payment. And we need at least 20 7th and 8th graders alone to make the middle school base aid payment. And we were shooting for a target of 30, and the middle school was kind of what our goal was. Because we're not hitting that, this letter has given us some bad news. I was looking at that in terms of our A and B count for this year and how it would affect us, our funding next year. Until I got the letter, it hadn't actually dawned on me that if we don't hit the numbers this year, which our funding for this year is based on, the state's going to want its money back. And that's what the letter is saying. So when I called Olivia and asked her to clarify that, directly, she said, yeah, that's exactly what it's saying. That base aid payment is right around $118,000. And it's paid out over time as the school year goes on. So our count comes up in February. Our 7th and 8th graders alone have to be at 27 full-time students in February, or we're not going to make the A and B count to qualify for the base aid payment. And in March, they're going to ask us for whatever they paid us so far towards that back. That will actually affect and change our general fund budget. So I'm not 100% sure how we're gonna figure that out, but there may be some documents that are gonna come in front of the board, and I want the board to be aware of it. One of the things that we've done this year is been pretty conservative with our staffing in the 227 Academy, partly because of this concern about the funding and how it was all going to fit together. We haven't dug too deep into the budget to look for where that money is going to come from, but that'll be part of what Jill and I are working on between now and March, just to be prepared for it. But we're also waiting to see what that February account comes in at. The biggest complaint that I had with the Board of Public Ed was that this is yet one more example in my book of how they're telling us they want to innovate and operate a different kind of school, but they want to hold us accountable and make us operate under the same rules that affect every public school. It's just a frustration for me, but I wanted the board to be aware of it.
How many schools in Montana have 6th graders in their elementary school?
Okay.
So isn't that something that could be brought at the legislature to say it isn't?
It's
They're in middle school.
And it gets brought up at the legislature a lot. What the school districts have advocated for years is that 6th graders should be counted as middle schoolers. And because we get a higher A and B rate for 7th through 12th graders than we do for kindergarten through 6th graders, because they're more expensive to educate, as well as specialized programs that we have in our middle school and high school. And so we've always argued that if we qualify as a middle school and our 6th graders are getting the same education that our 7th and 8th graders are getting, so they're getting shopped, they're getting art, they're getting foods and nutrition when we have it, they're getting all those extra classes, that we should receive the same A and B payment for 6th graders or 2%. But that's never really gained a lot of traction, and it just hasn't been changed in the code. And so we're still operating under that old idea that K through 6 is elementary.
But then even in our,
Even
in our application, I mean, if you want to build
Right.
legality, we wrote 6 through 12 and signified that we were doing middle school and high school. And you didn't write anything about elementary. So to me, that's like, well, you didn't read our application then, because
Right.
that's what we weren't applying for that, and you should have brought it up.
It's a new law meeting an old law. What's
Yeah.
going on?
I was very
also disclosed on their end that elementary was considered 6th grade.
Right, I can't find it.
It wasn't explained explicitly to me, but as your superintendent, I think it was expected that I would know that. And I kind of knew it, but again, it's a charter school. So for instance, we thought we'd have flexibility with our librarian assignment. And then when we asked them about it, they said, well, you have to apply for a variance. Well, if you want to apply for a variance, we could have just applied for a variance as a regular run-of-the-mill public school. Why have a charter school if you have to follow the safety. So, so anyway, these are, what I will say is, we applied to be a charter school, to be a leader in the state and try out this new option and this new law. And we were encouraged to do it, and I think we've got a successful program, and I think you're gonna hear more about that as the year goes on. But also, there's some risks that you take, and this is one of them, and that we're kind of caught in the crossfire on, I guess, is for lack of a better way to explain it.
How many people need to complain to get a change?
So the money that was already given, was that an actual question that you wanted answered?
Yeah, kind of, but it's.
Okay.
Well, I can somewhat answer the question. It's come up several times as far as what you're asking is the funding level goes. It will be coming up again in this legislative session. So when it does come up, I will make everybody aware of it, that what's going on, and that you can provide support if it comes up. So that's, we run through this all the time. One thing to keep in mind, when Dan told me this, I shared your guys' frustration. I was upset about it too, as actually the bill sponsor and say, you know, this was not what your intent was. What are you going to do about this? Because I was very frustrated. Where it's coming from is that I believe in this particular case, the Office of Public Instruction is reading the law correctly, even though it's really a misapplication of what the intention is on it. And I think they feel like their hands are tied because they're saying, we've got a law that states that your kids are elementary in 6th grade. And so therefore, it doesn't really matter whether or not you were trying to be innovative, we still have to follow the law. And so I share your frustration with it. I think they'll get it fixed, but they're not gonna get it fixed in time enough for us to save the $118,000 chunk of change that we're gonna have to come up with. Especially since now we not only have to reach the 20 threshold, we actually need more kids in order to make up, because it's an average of the 2 counts to equal 20. So we need over and above that.
So we would need 9 more kids, and that would put us at 37.
Oh,
Or I'd have to drop the 10 6th grader, which the lady at OPI is like, don't do that. And I'm like, no,
we're not getting money for it.
what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Well, then I
And
thought
that's
I was gonna
another
go to the
little
hockey
issue.
team,
Right.
because while the hockey team is homeschool or online, and I'm like, we'll just enroll them on our online side of things. And give them an education.
Now you're thinking that's it.
Yeah, seriously, I'm actually dead serious.
Yeah.
So,
So
did you-
the money that, we're already accounted for or given for those students. Is that already been spent to where we're gonna have to find how to pay that money back?
No, so we went pretty lean on our staffing in the charter school. And we didn't hire an administrator. That was one position that we didn't fill. So we've got that in the budget. We only budgeted for a half-time position for that, so that's not gonna be enough money to pay this bill, but that's where we're gonna start. And then, we budgeted for more teachers, I believe, than we have working in the charter school, so I think there'll be some savings there. But we may have to dip into some other funds to pull it together. Because it's not like we can just tell a para who's working in the charter school, well, go home because we can't pay anymore because we still have the kids in there until June, so.
So then also moving forward, like what do you do with those 6th graders if you're not using?
Well, those are some tough questions that we're gonna have to answer. For sure. And a really good question. Yeah, like Paul talked about in his report, that's part of what we'll be working on in January, February, is just where we're gonna go with the charter schools as we plan for next year. And if there's a bright spot in this, at least clears up the haziness about funding that one of the questions that we've been asking all along. So now we know.
Who is the one first hospital?
Oh, originally, got it, baby.
Right now, we don't, I mean. When I talked to Scott about this, it's just letting the board know about it. A lot of things can change between now and February. There's a outside chance we could somehow get that number and make it, which would be great. But in case we don't, I just want you to be aware.
I'm incorrect on that. That was, there were three bills that came in simultaneously. The one that actually sponsored the original bill on that, so. Possible. The picture of the center right here is not very false, but I can get you that information for you in the meeting. No. That was any other questions, comments from the board? Okay, we'll move on to consideration of our central office relocation.
Okay, the health clinic right outside here, across the parking lot has been sitting empty now for getting close to a year and a half. I guess it is a year. And when we did the facility study with SMA Architects, their recommendation at that time was for us to consider moving central office from its current location to the new building. That we shouldn't have a nice new building sitting there empty while we have central office sitting in an old block, uninsulated block building. So I've kind of dragged my feet on that a little bit, partly because I've been tied up with other projects, but also partly because I was kind of thinking that maybe we might still get an opportunity to bring a health clinic into East Helena in the clinic building. That seems like it's not happening. And so we're starting to work on the idea of what it would look like to move central office into that building. And so I wanted to, and we can look at this tonight and you can ask us to go back to the drawing board if you want to. This is a drawing of the floor plan of that clinic building right now. And what we'd like to do is, before we consider moving in there, is move some walls around, basically. And so if you're looking at the handout that I just gave you, down at the bottom in the center is the entry door. And because it's a health clinic, it's set up with a significant amount of privacy. So you have a secure vestibule entry there. And then it opens into a private hallway that goes to exam rooms and offices. We'd like to open that space up. So where the X's are in those two walls above the entry door and to the left of it, we'd like to remove those walls to open that up into a reception room and make it more a larger entrance. And then that would be where district secretary works. And part of the hang up with it right now is there's not a good window in there. And so we want to put a window in there so that there's some natural light in that space. Other than that, we're not proposing any major adjustments to the building, but that demolition and restructure is going to require a little bit of electrical work because there are light switches and outlets in those walls. And we're not really proposing, like some of these rooms that will be offices have, their exam rooms with cabinets and sinks in them. We'll just leave those set up the way they are and not really change much else in the building. So I put together, so I got an estimate from a carpenter that we've used in the district before to do the work in there. And then just put together some rough estimates of other costs that would be associated with moving. And that top number there for the carpentry at about $8,800 is what he's saying it's probably gonna cost us to get that adjustment done inside the building. Then we've got some tape texture and paint, a little bit of electrical. We're gonna need some flooring in the entry where we move the walls, and then the room to the top left, that was the dental lab that we're now saying is gonna be a conference room. It's got a bunch of holes in the floor because they had all the dental machines for the suction and everything else underneath the floor. So we need to replace the flooring in there. We need to upgrade the door locks so they match the rest of our automated door lock systems. We want to put in security cameras. We don't have those in there right now, and we would want to put those in if we stay in the current central office, or if we don't have security cameras at either location. We need to get internet out there. That should be a fairly straightforward process to tie into the Prickly Pear network at Prickly Pear Elementary, because we have conduit between the two buildings. Put up a sign that says central office in that monument sign that's out on the street. I don't know that we'll have any printing costs at all, but we will have to update our letterhead and all that. And we possibly are gonna need some furniture because some of our desks and stuff are not gonna fit in the new office spaces in that building. So this budget came out a little higher than I expected it to be, and it's really the very high end of what I think it's gonna cost for us to relocate. And then there's a possibility that we might want to add like an airlock entry porch at the front door, so that we have a double door system to kind of keep that blast of cold air from coming in when people come into central office in the middle of the winter. That would be something that we could do later. But if we did, it would put that total at just a little over $40,000. And that would be if all these came in on target. I anticipate that most of them are going to come in significantly lower than what's on this list. Our target would be to be ready to move in there by June or July of next summer. Have everything set up so that we can move over there once school gets out. It'll be a little more orderly that way, I think. And Jill and I are saying, looking at probably that we could use funds that we have in the building reserve fund to cover that expense. So we've got a pretty significant accrual in there because we've used COVID relief money for a lot of the expenses that we probably would have used building relief funds over the last couple of years. And I think we're upwards of $900,000 in building reserve, so we can afford to make this move. So I think what I'm looking for is, first of all, if there's any questions or thoughts or ideas, because I'm still wanting to verify that this is a good idea. It was proposed by our consultants that we hired. It is a nice building. It's nearly new. It was put there on that foundation in 2018. And would be definitely a very nice move for the staff from central office. However, if there's other ideas about what we should or could be doing with that space, I'm definitely willing to discuss that as well. If not, I would be interested in the board supporting this proposed maximum budget for relocation of central office.
Okay. Thoughts, ideas, concerns, questions?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a little hard to approve that with all the budget visions that we've had. And so then I'm like, well, what's the minimum that we would need to do to move there? And is there any way, we could think of, is there a class that needs to learn how to keep down walls?
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
an educational opportunity. So I think it's a great idea. I think eventually we will get there. I just wonder right now.
And that's it. We can postpone it. The issue with the construction there is it's suspended ceiling. So when you start tearing out walls, you got to match everything back up. And there will be, we're going to try and keep it to a minimum in terms of drywall tape and texture. There won't be a lot of that, but there's just going to be a little bit of that to get it going. And we could move into it the way it is. It's just that this reception room is a dark hole with no windows and it's isolated and just not really a great workspace. So that's a huge chunk of what we're looking at.
So essentially, could you lean into it the way it is now and just kind of move around, like work around the issues, like don't use it until like.
Well, maybe.
Or
Yeah, this is low priority, so that could be, yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
That is. a little-
Yeah, have you been in this?
Yeah.
It's not a real attractive workspace for 8 hours a day.
Need to probably remove the text.
Well, what we were originally looking at was turning this into a file room, that check-in room. And put the window in here and making this the reception office, but when we do that, I lose an office. If we go this route, we keep, this office is unassigned right now, so we've got superintendent, business manager, payroll, accounts payable, and then your reception right here, and then we've got an open office for, yeah, something down the road. Which I like longer term. If we open this up, like right now, there's not really room for a desk in this space. And this is just really closed off and kind of weird for what we're used to. It just seems like it should be more open to the public when you come in to see us or do stuff in there. But we can definitely go back and chip away at it too and try and revise.
Cause you only get one.
Yeah. Yeah, and mostly because he called us and he's looking for work in the winter and available, and so that was attractive because trying to get contractors to come back is sometimes difficult, but we could definitely get some other cost estimates too. And just talk to him about scheduling and that could help drive the decision too. So I'll see what I can do. Steve definitely knows at least one other guy, and if anybody knows of anybody that's kind of like it's kind of a downtime a year, so it's a good time. And a lot of people are looking for inside work. So. Yeah.
Couldn't they do it as like as a business, if you have made too much money, you might need to donate
We'll write
some
off.
time.
If you know anybody that
I'm gonna.
needs them, have them call.
You need to donate some time.
So I'm okay with,
What's the heating system?
it's a gas forced air.
How much is cheaper to heat than that?
Yes, it's, it was a mobile, like a modular,
Yeah.
and usually those come super insulated. It's, it's just been sitting there for a year and a half and,
And we
empty
don't
buildings.
get better.
Right. And so we, I try to get over there every couple of months and just run the faucets and make sure there's water in the traps and all that kind of stuff. So how about if we,
Well, I mean, one other consideration too is that I would suggest would be that this was originally set up as a health clinic for the school district. It didn't take off for the level of success that our expectations were, and so that's why it has been mothballed for the last year and a half. If we move this direction, one thing to keep in mind is that you're likely not going to go back to it. So it pretty much sets it in place that we won't be continuing on with the health clinic, which is fine. I mean, if there's not a need for that, then we absolutely don't need to have an open building for just in case. But I'm just saying that if you start doing full-blown renovations on this thing, it does make a lot of sense for us to try to shove something back and make it help. But pretty much have to decide that we're going to have losses with it, and not move forward with that. And so you were saying, yeah.
that, I'm comfortable working on this a little bit and coming back next month for some additional discussion on it if you want. I just wanted to get all started on that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good thing that you did that, I think it's probably caught a lot of the board members a little bit by surprise that there been a little bit of talk with some of the staff, but I think they were pushing or lobbying for it, but nothing had ever been specified that we were getting forward. I would entertain a motion to either accept that or to table. Can I have a motion to table for a second? A second from Tristan. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, I'm glad you brought this, then we wouldn't have any clue.
Yeah, we gotta start somewhere.
Exactly.
Any questions or comments to table from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries, and we will revisit this.
Yeah.
So just do a little bit more homework and we'll bring something back. Maybe have a funding stream in place.
Great.
Okay, next item is a memo of understanding for the East Helena Education Support Association members to work over the holidays.
Yep, and that was in your supporting docs. This is just an updated version of the one that we've approved every year for the last at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. And all it does is if we have classified staff, usually it's our paraprofessionals. Christmas break, spring break can be a hardship for our hourly employees because they don't get hours over the break. And this opens up the door for folks to work in another classification, and usually they work with our maintenance crew for however many days or hours that they work out with Steve over the break to make some extra money. So that's what the MOU is. Usually we have 2 or 3 people that take us up on it.
And that does require action from the board in order to allow that to happen. So I would entertain a motion to approve the memo of understanding for the EHSA members to work with the holidays.
Motion to approve our MOU.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. And second for Mark Deal. Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And our 8th and final item on tonight's agenda is consideration of our ISEP options application. And I think Paul and then you've got some.
You got it. The application is in your supporting docs. It's lengthy. It's 20-some pages long. Paul has put in a ton of work in preparing this. Brian had started the process last year, and I thought that we had actually approved it at the board level at some point, but I couldn't ever find a record of that when we went back to our notes. And even if we had, you'll see in here that if our coordinator, which is principal, if that position changes, we have to go through this process and reapply in anyway. So we would be doing this either way. I said options, and I'm going to let Paul talk about it a little bit. It's going to offer an alternative route for students who are struggling and at risk of dropping out of school to get their high school credential and walk out of here with their head held high. And I'll let Paul talk a little bit more about the mechanics of how the program is going to work.
Yeah, so they have to have a certain amount of credits. They can't have too many and they can't have too little to be able to sort of take part in the HiSET options program. Now, it's not just the GED, it's not just doing the 5 tests. That's one part of it. The other part of it is they must be in school every single day and they must be so they said at OPI, either passing their classes or working really hard to pass them. So they haven't necessarily passed them, but they have to be in school and they have to be working hard pretty much all day. We've only got it set up this year for the second 6 months of this year, which means those kids they've got a bit of a shorter run in. Next year we'll be able to start it in the fall. It's taken 6 months to do the paperwork for it. So yeah, and as long as I'm here, that it's just going to be like a one sheet sign off every year. They'll come in and sort of look to see what we're doing, and then we don't have to do this 30-page application. So yeah, it's a really good opportunity once again for the kids. They will get a normal diploma. There'll be a East Helena high school diploma. It's not easy. They have to be in school. The requirements are they have to sign a contract to do with attendance and also being in class and making sure they're trying all their classes, as well as passing the 5 tests, okay, which they'll do at Helena College. The way they do that is in the morning, the coordinator will work with the guys who are going to be doing it in the morning, and And then, when they're ready, they'll do practice tests. We operate through an organization called Essential Education. And they have all the different online resources, there for the kids to work with. And then as soon as they're ready for a test, then they go do the test. They can only fail it 3 times. They fail it 3 times, they're done. Okay, in an individual test. And so ideally we want them to be ready, go do the test, and then we move on into where the next module we're going to go after that. Lots of different ways they can attack it. They can basically study 4 or 5 at the same time, but generally speaking, they're study for 2 at a time. Okay, over that period of time. And then you do the test, move on to the next test. And then once they finish, say for instance, not so much this year, but well, let's just say this year. So say for instance, they finish their tests in April, and then their classes are finished. We have to fill their schedule in, and so we will fill them with classes. They have to turn up, and they have to try. Okay, that's going to be part of the contract again. So just because they finish the test doesn't mean they get, half the day off in the morning. Okay, that's not the way it works. They're getting a second chance to basically be able to graduate, but they're expected to put on a full shift here for the 6 month or the one year period they're going to do. So, yep, that's basically how it works.
And if I wanted to access the program.
I'm somewhat, is that the one that was? And they shut that down, so in my mind, it's similar to it, but it's not the same because Access had to drop out to get into Access. And they paid for it through Health Ed. So this is a little different than that program. The 2 important pieces of it that I think that the board needs to be aware of is we have kids right now that are going to qualify for the program for 2nd semester. So there's a need for it in the community. It's going to provide an alternate avenue for students who might otherwise just throw their hands up in the air and quit because they're so far behind they can't get caught up. And then the other part is it's a commitment of resources. We have to have a staff member who is in charge of it. And by in charge of it, I mean Paul's in charge of it, but a teacher who is working directly with the kids day in, day out. So that's an obligation on our part to meet from a staffing perspective. So we're saying, yeah, we know these kids need this, and yeah, we're willing to commit resources towards it. And I think it's a really good program, and I think it's a great option. It's, when I was in school, it was GED, right? If you didn't think you were graduating, you took your test and got your GED. This is a step up from that, and it's a credential that's a legitimate diploma versus just getting the GED, which was kind of frowned upon, So I don't know, did you want to add anything else to that?
No, not really. Yeah, I think.
Let me ask you this, because we haven't clarified this before the meeting, we probably should have, but this is gonna fall under the umbrella of the charter school, actually, or the service delivery is gonna occur in the two.
It's gonna occur in we have to have a sort of a designated space, which we do. We've got 3 spaces down in the 227 wing. In reality, they'll be working with the other kids in the classroom because as you'll hear next month, the 227 academy is very quiet. It's a very quiet space, and it's quiet for a reason down there. So yeah, I think it's the space isn't a concern. Okay. The concern we've got now is we have to have a teacher with those guys for half the day. That's the big crux of this thing.
So I guess why add another program instead of just shifting them into the 227? Because it looks like those instructors are the same instructors that are in the 227.
They are. Yeah, so they're gonna be assisting. They're just the support for those guys that they don't quite understand something. So whoever the lead teacher is going to be, they're not going to be a specialist in all 4 areas. There's 5 tests in 4 areas, two English tests. So their job is to basically sort of help these guys out and find the help that they need to get. If it's obviously in their special area, whichever teacher we end up hiring, then obviously they'll be able to help them out in that area. But if it's math or English and it's that they're not trained in that, they'll do as much as they can. Then after that, they'll see the 227 tutors who do teach that stuff. Say, okay, you want to come and help us with this? And those guys will be there, so they can help.
And then the tests are administered at Helena College,
Helena College.
and that's the component that's not currently part of 227. We don't have that option for kids to finish and matriculate through using the HiSET options tests. If they can't earn their credit in 227 right now, they're just not going to graduate. And so if we've got kids that are, we call it credit deficient. In other words, they're juniors or seniors and they're way behind.
Must be seniors.
Yeah,
I see.
okay. So then this provides them that avenue to finish, get their credential and not just quit. And I think that's the attraction to it. Like right now, you know, we're talking 2 or 3 kids. In the future, it'll be probably,
Next year, we've got earmarked at least 2, maybe 4. And we're not even talking about we get to the end of the semester,
Yeah.
and there might be some seniors who might end up having to do this as well.
and honestly,
Too far behind to.
Yeah.
Be part of the two.
yeah, and you know, and in the 227, and this is something, I don't want to steal your thunder, but we do have kids that are rapidly accumulating credits in the 227 that are catching up. These are kids that are far enough behind that they're not going to be able to even do that. And that honestly, putting it under that umbrella actually finds us a lot of efficiencies because those teachers are already working down there on the other program and they can help these kids out too. Where these kids might just say, well, I need 11 credits and there's no way I can earn that by May, so I'm out. And so it's that one more option for kids who maybe made some bad choices early on in their career, but still want.
And I will say, it's not easy, you know, it's not going to be easy for those guys who end up doing it, but you know, it's there. It's sitting there in front of them and they put their heads down, they can do it.
Any other questions for Paul? Paul, what's MCIS 360? I see it referenced in the application quite a bit. I wasn't really sure.
So what that is, that's the online portal for kids to look at their careers, look at career options, and also to work on resumes and stuff like that as well. The tutor will, the teacher that ends up working with them will also work with them with that as well during that time. Basically looking at what they're going to do when they leave school. That's what it's all about, MCIS.
And who administers that program, or who's, is that a state program, or is
Yeah,
it?
it's a state program.
It is.
It's a free state program.
And we get it for free.
Okay.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Once again, it just gets their heads in a space where they can sort of think, okay, this is kind of what I want to do. And then they can sort of, it allows them to investigate that kind of stuff, as well as the resumes and getting stuff together for interview.
For the board this evening, we have the HiSET application. And I would entertain a motion from the board to approve such application.
What's required of our.
The staff member, we gotta have a teacher dedicated to, or at least part of his time dedicated towards this.
This doesn't
Program.
take away from any instruction we're already doing.
Not right now, no. And so, and the person that's listed in here has not been hired for that position because we haven't posted it yet, but he's the individual that could do that work for us. He's already in the budget as an instructional tutor right now for this year. So it's a budgeted position. But we're gonna have to, he is a certified teacher. He's just not working as a certified teacher right now. He'll have to apply and we'll have to hire him under a half-time teacher contract. So we'll cut his tutor time to 0.5 and he'll be a 0.5 teacher, which he'll get some additional benefits and a little bit higher pay in that role. But we can absorb that additional cost for half the year. It's not like we have to go out and just hire a new person. We've already got somebody on staff. It's just that they're not quite in the right role.
Has he looked into this role or is he aware of this role?
Yeah, I believe Paul.
He did it last year. So yeah, he was the instructional, well, I'm not going to say how they did it last year, but basically, he ran the HiSET program last year. Okay, as an instructional tutor, which he shouldn't have been doing.
He was a halftime teacher last year.
He was?
Yeah.
Okay. So
It was.
he might have been okay then.
He was on the same contract, but it was a temporary contract, and then we didn't have a spot for him as a social studies teacher this year, so he came back as a full-time tutor.
But yeah, so, and the thing is, he knows how it works. That would be, you know, and I'm not saying that, you know, someone else wouldn't be highly enough qualified, but it'd be pretty tough to beat the experience he's had in the area.
No, I'll make the motion.
Yeah, we have a motion to approve the HICID application as presented.
I'll second.
And a second from Marcia. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. And that concludes this evening's meeting of the East Towns Public Schools. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on January 13th at Radley Elementary. Place to be determined, I'm assuming.
Yeah, maybe in that downstairs room that we used last year.
Yeah, we're going to get a better food sticks on it. And from that will conclude our meeting.
Okay, trustees, this just concludes documents. I need you guys to sign before you leave.
So did you remember?
This is, we're recreating the signature sheet with teachers negotiated in the market feedback. Right now. Because we lost one that you guys signed. We passed on. Well, the school board is. You're off. How's basketball? Yeah. Next game is Thursday. Friday.